Welcome to Novels Alive, Live the Story, brought to you by Between Your Sheets for those with a passion for books. Today's guest is New York Times best-selling author David Morrell. Welcome to Novels Alive. I'm Dana Linton, and today I am so thrilled to have David Morrell back with us.
You always say that.
It's true, though.
We have a good time.
We do have a good time, and we are going to not cut you off and just let you go with whatever you're thinking, because I could sit and listen to you for hours.
Well, let's see. Okay.
Now, you have done something a little bit different than you're used to doing.
I have.
And steampunk.
Well, it is kind of steampunk. What we've done is we've got some illustrations for a new book and the illustrations are steampunk. The book is called Murder is a Fine Art, and it's very different for me because it's set in 1854 London. Oh. Now, I'm an Americanist. I have some people know the creator of Rambo has a PhD in American literature and was a professor for many years in American literature. And so it's an abrupt shift for me to switch over to 1854. One of my goals was to make people truly believe they were in 1854. I spent a year and a half in a kind of it's like Somewhere in Time, you know, where he holds the coins and he transports himself back in time, and that was almost what I did. I just read everything I could about 1854 London.
Oh, and so, well, what gave you the idea to even go there in the first place? You
know, I tell my writing students, you have to, if something even remotely interests you, if it sparks you, you should pay attention. I was watching a recent movie about Charles Darwin. I think it's called Origin. And Charles Darwin, it was a sad story. His favorite daughter had died, and he was feeling not only grief-stricken but guilt-ridden because he thought perhaps he might have contributed. And meanwhile, his devout wife understood the implications of Origin of the Species, which he was unable to write. He was having a block because of the marriage issue and the grief.
Sure.
And about 2/3 of the way through the movie, a character arrives. This is like a minute scene. A character arrives and says, "You know, Charles, there are people who are saying that maybe what we do and what we feel is based upon things we don't understand. That there are things going on that way over here that are influencing us that we're not aware of." And sounds like Freud to me.
Exactly.
But this is the middle 1850s. Freud didn't publish till the end of the century. So 50 years ahead, they're talking about this guy named De Quincey. So I thought I knew who he was. I was sure he was Thomas De Quincey. So, true scholar that I am, I ran to my bookshelf after the movie was, pulled it down, there's Thomas De Quincey. And De Quincey was known, he was a sensational author in the 1800s because he was the first person to write about drug addiction in a book called Confessions of an English Opium Eater. And asked me about laudanum.
What do you know about laudanum?
Oh, good, I'm glad you asked. Laudanum was a substance that was as common in the medicine cabinet of people in the 1800s as we treat aspirin. It was 90% brandy with 10% pulverized opium.
Oh.
Now, this was legal. You could buy it from your butcher, you could buy it from the pharmacist, you could buy it from the kid on the street selling newspapers, you could buy it anywhere. And it wasn't terribly high priced. And it had a poison label on it because people had to understand if you took a little too much of this, you were gone.
Yeah.
And De Quincey, we'll put it in perspective. If you drank a half tablespoon of laudanum and you weren't used to it, you'd probably die. De Quincey was drinking 16 ounces of the stuff every day.
Oh, he built a tolerance of it, obviously.
And he had these opium pills that he took, and so he was at dinner one night and somebody said, "Oh, a glass of wine," and because it was opium, it was laudanum. So he wrote this. He was basically a functioning drug addict who, and we don't recommend this, who wrote brilliantly, one of the few people to write brilliantly under the influence. He was, because of the opium, he got interested in what was happening in his subconscious, and he worked out all these theories of Freud way before Freud. Where we're going with the novel here is that in 1811, these bookend the century. At the end of the century, there was Jack the Ripper and all those killings. The beginning of the century, there were similar killings that occurred in almost the same spot. This is all real, in London, in the Wapping district, known as the Ratcliff Highway Murders. 4 people died in the first one, 3 people died in the second. Their throats were slit, their heads were bashed in viciously, and in one case, a 6-month-old infant baby had the same thing done, and then the killer smashed the baby carriage and then piled all the debris on the corpse.
That's some rage.
And it was never solved. They had somebody they thought did it, but he hanged himself in prison, and they never quite knew if for sure he was the guy, right? So that was 1811. Thomas de Quincey, he of Confessions of an English Opium Eater, had an abnormal fixation on these killings, which actually literally paralyzed London and all of England. There were 50 newspapers. This was the revolution, first media mass killing. There were like 50 newspapers in London. They printed it up. There was an English mail coach system at 10 miles an hour, reliably spreading. And within 2 days, all of England was paralyzed. Nothing like it had ever, if it had happened, nobody knew about it. So De Quincey saved all the clippings, and he read everything he could about it. And in 1854, the year of my novel, he published the 3rd installment of an essay called On Considering Murder as One of the Fine Arts, in which he praised the killer for being a genius. Cool.
Well, kind of morbid, but yeah.
And it's the first true crime essay. He invented the genre. He's in the killer's mind, and he goes through both sets of killings. But at strategic times, he cuts to the victims. And they don't know they're about to be killed. Oh, it's a masterpiece of suspense in blood-soaked pages. So I thought, this is pretty cool. I have a guy who influenced Edgar Allan Poe, who influenced Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So there's a direct line from De Quincey to Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, wow.
But he's at the start of it all, and I'm thinking, I could use this guy as the main character in the book. The drug addict who publishes this blood-soaked essay in 1854 and causes, that for very complex reasons, it's not a copycat thing, it looks like it, but somebody starts doing the murders again, exactly as they occurred as he describes them. And naturally, because he's a drug addict, he's suspected. And so the whole setup of the book is how he was 69 years old. He had a 21-year-old daughter who becomes the person who's sort of helping him, the energetic part of it. And it's just a whale of a lot of fun to see this brilliant, eccentric man who is propelling this book, in which, as I said, the whole idea was that you would believe you were in 1854 London.
Well, if anybody can do it, you can.
Well, it's the research. You're very kind. The research. Honestly, I thought I was in 1854. I knew it. The coins, they didn't have paper currency. It existed, but nobody trusted it because the Bank of England hadn't been invented yet. So people carried coins which the government did support. So you either had gold or silver or copper coins, and the streets were either slab granite or else cobblestone or else dirt, depending on where you were. And here, how much did a woman's clothing weigh? Not a servant girl, but someone of means. This is fun. How much in 1854 did that woman's clothes weigh?
I'm going to guess 8 pounds. Way up, 15. No way. 20, 30.
37 pounds.
Oh my good heck.
They had whalebone corset. They're really teeth, whale teeth. But that weighed. Then they had to have undergarments for modesty reasons because the darn thing was popping up all the time. Then they had overgarments. The average woman in 1854 wore, was it 20 yards of satin? Because all this had to be, you know, and it's no wonder they were fainting because they were they were drug addicts. And they were fainting because they were corseted in, and they were fainting because it's hot
and carrying all this weight.
Yeah,
and, oh my
37 pounds. So the book, I decided that going to London in 1854 was like going to Mars. It's stuff we don't understand.
Sure.
So the book is structured so that at the beginning of each chapter, the narrator comes in and says, you need to understand some things here. Like, you don't know about laudanum. Let me tell you about laudanum.
Oh, I like that.
And then we have a whole essay about laudanum, or discursion, whatever we want to call it. And then the story goes on. And then at one point, the narrator says, you don't understand Victorian burial customs, so I'm going to have to tell you about how they buried people.
Well, that's a great way for people to learn and be entertained at the same time.
That was my hope. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's really gothic and really, you know, with these murders who truly did rival those of Jack the Ripper, and so it's been, you know, it's wildly different. But I've always tried to reinvent myself. I believe we must keep growing and moving forward.
You're so good at everything that you do that I have no doubt.
I love it when we spend time together.
But it is so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I am going to rush out as soon as this book is released.
It will. The publication date is it's a while, May 2012, but
12.
12, yeah, because May is already behind us as we.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2013.
Okay.
I'm focusing on 2012.
And
you're absolutely right. I need you.
I thought maybe there was some kind of steampunk thing going on with the publication.
No, but what we did, because it's so weird, that's where the steampunk thing came in, where we had there's a gentleman named Tomislav who is a painter in Croatia, and we have hired a Croatian painter for, you know, a modest sum, and he's got these absolutely wonderful colored, it's almost like sci-fi images of some of the things in the.
So it's a graphic novel.
There'll just be the three. We just did it for fun, you know.
How would that be? To be able to do what you love and just do it for fun.
Yeah, you can see I grin a lot.
Yes, you do, and you should. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
David.
Thank you.